The NBA has a problem. Recently, the discussions of viewership within the NBA has been the center of discussion between the NBA community, or just basketball community in general, and overall the sports world. People have been stating things such as the lack of physicality, offense heavy league leading to less defense, the transition to just shooting threes, all as reasons as to why the NBA is declining. Some even say things such as the lack of star power, where young stars today aren't necessarily replicating the impact players such as LeBron, Curry, and KD have had, and just creating a decline of this product. Today we're going to be exploring the real reasons why the NBA is declining, and if it's just as simple as the play styles and or the lack of star power. Let's get into it. It is no secret that within the NBA, the viewership has been declining across the board. Networks such as ESPN, ABC, and TNT have all witnessed a substantial drop in viewership in this last year alone, citing that 18% according to Sports Media Watch drop from last year, which is a crazy amount of number. And within that same article, it states that since the year 2012, we've seen a drop in viewership by 48% to present day, which is an insane number to think about. Over half the viewer base has left or have been stopped getting tracked from watching the game. A ridiculous number. And if you want to look at it at the grand stage of things, the NBA Finals, the most important games in the NBA season, that is what the season leads to. A huge drop in just 6 years has been noted, where in 2018, the Cavs versus the Warriors, where the Warriors swept the Cavs, on average, every game got 10.1 million viewers to watch a game. In comparison to just last year against the Celtics and Mavericks, we only saw 5.8 million average viewers in the finals, which is, again, another crazy drop, because just in 6 years, when it matters the most, the viewership has dropped about 50%, and something needs to change. The NBA has suffered a huge viewership problem across a decade, and really, unfortunately, seems like it's going to continue trending in the down direction. But why is that when the talent seems to be the best it's ever been, really historically speaking, that the product seems to be going downhill? Well, I think one of the reasons is because the playstyles of today's NBA has potentially turned away many fans. This league has become very offense heavy, with defense kind of getting forgotten about. It's so common to see defensive efforts that are just very lackluster. Players really also seem to just kind of not care about the defensive effort as much. Now, there is some teams out there that still value defense. I want to say things like Oklahoma, or really any of the top defensive teams in the league. They value defense in one way or another. But that doesn't mean that they stop every team from scoring 100 points every game, which, that seems to be the new norm now. Teams scoring a crazy amount per game, and just those low scores of 90 to 80, 70 to 80s, those are completely non-existent now. And so I did a little deep dive to see how the stats looked per year, just to kind of get an understanding of how vast the evolution has become of the offensive game. In 2012, we saw that most teams were averaging 98.1 points per game. And I wanted to also see how many three-pointers they attempted, because, like we mentioned, that is one of the shifting things that has happened in today's NBA, and potentially one of the reasons why people don't really want to watch the product. So, along with the points per game, I saw that they shot about 16.7 or about 17 threes per game, which is unheard of today. Players literally individually shoot that many threes, and so for a team to average that, it's kind of crazy to think about, because, again, we're in a league now where that's normal for one player. And so looking at the stats from last year, because this season isn't completed, 2023 to 2024, teams averaged about 114 points per game and 35 three-point attempts per game. It is clear to see that throughout the years, the game has obviously evolved beyond what it used to be, and we've seen major changes to today's NBA. However, is that one of the reasons why the league is seemingly declining? One of the biggest complaints that I've seen, aside from, it becoming more of an offense-heavy league, is the fact that the three-point shot has just become the biggest focus point for many of these teams. And what used to be trying to get high percentage two shots has become just shooting low percentage threes. If you watch an NBA game today, it's bad sometimes. Just recently, I think there was a game where they combined for the most misses of threes in the games in the history of the NBA, And then I think there was another one where there was a record of most threes made in the game. I think it was the Mavericks and Warriors game that statistic happened in. And sometimes it's cool. I enjoy the 3-point shot. I think it's cool. Players like Steph Curry obviously completely evolved what that shot became to what it is now. But when it's bad, it's really bad. There's so many instances where teams settle for threes when they should be taking twos, and it slowly snowballs to them just missing so many, and just the game becomes a fest of shooting threes. And it's like the motto of live by the three, die by the three has been adopted by many teams in the league. Not many, all the teams in the league. And it's just created this product where it's majority threes now. One of the teams that has adopted this a lot is the Celtics, and I don't mean to like throw any shade to them. I don't want to knock them down, or I don't want to hate on them, because they're a good team. But if you watch their games, it's shooting threes. I was so curious to see as to how many 3-pointers they averaged a game, and I was surprised to see that they averaged 51 3-point attempts per game, whereas last year they averaged 42.5 a game. The fact that they already broke the 40 3-point attempts per game last year, and then now added 10 more this year, is insane. And the really scary thing about that is the fact that they are the defending champions. So if you're a team that's trying to get to where the Celtics are, and you're seeing that they're taking 51 threes a game, what does that mean you have to do to win a championship? You are going to try to replicate that in order to have the success they are having, because that's what the top team is doing. And so I got curious, and I went to go see how the top seeded teams looked in comparison to that of the Celtics, to see if they are kind of following that formula, which again would be a lot detrimental to the league, because every team averaging 51 threes a game, and the way the Celtics shoot the three ball, if you actually watch their game and you see how they play, if every team played like that, it would not be good. And so on the screen now, I'm going to be putting up all the stats for the teams that I looked up. Now remember, these are all like the top seeded teams, or most of the top seeded teams in the league from East and West, just to show you in comparison to how they look against the defending champions. And I gotta say, man, despite them not averaging 51, it's getting pretty close. On average, most of these teams are shooting above 35 3-points a game. And again, that is a scary sign, because I feel like in a few years, 35 is going to be the new 16 from a couple of years ago, from a decade ago. And it's going to be like, oh, you were only shooting 35 threes a game? They're going to be shooting 50. That, I will say, is one of my biggest concerns, because watching how the Celtics play, honestly, I don't want to sound like I'm hating. It's really not enjoyable unless you're a fan of that team. When they've played against my team and they've destroyed us, like, it's just not enjoyable. It's not even like, oh, we're losing by a lot. It's more so just the way they do it. There's nothing cool, nothing amazing that comes out of it besides them just running to the 3-point line or getting a second chance basket, making a three, fast break three. It's always a three. And again, it just makes the NBA product a little bit less desirable to watch. And it's cool sometimes, but again, when it gets ugly, and a lot of teams, it gets ugly for them, it's not an enjoyable watch. And another potential reason why the league could be declining, as mentioned in the intro, is the lack of star power. Now, obviously, when I say that, I'm not saying that the league doesn't have any stars. We are very accustomed to the young, upcoming players that are going to potentially fill in the shoes that are going to be left behind by the last generation. But despite this, is there any player today that can really realistically replicate the impact that LeBron, Curry, KD, Harden, Westbrook, all these legends that are coming from the old generation, are they going to be able to replicate that? Like, in the moment right now, if they retired all today and we were left with the new generation, which player right now is at the level at the legends that I just mentioned? Now, again, that's not to say that they won't develop into these people. They definitely are all very young, all are very talented, and will definitely at the end of their careers, we'll be having some discussions about them, like we're doing with our legends today. But if you really think about it, just historically speaking, think about it like this: Johnson, Bird, right? Jordan comes in, he's got to compete with those two legends. That's a conversation. LeBron or Kobe, Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, Jordan, and then the older generations, Hardens, the Westbrooks, KDs, Curry, they all, come into this conversation. But then You now look at the new generation, and again, there's very talented players. There is very, very talented players. I cannot emphasize that enough. There is a lot of talented players. But when you really start talking about those little things, how many of them could we realistically be like, okay, this guy is similar to Jordan, Kobe. We can put him in that conversation. Like, can we? Like Anthony Edwards, for example, that is the one that most people tend to kind of say he has like the MJS thing. But realistically, we're not comparing MJ and Anthony Edwards. He's not on that level yet at all. And to say that, it'd be crazy to say that he's anywhere remotely close to Jordan right now. Now, again, can he develop into a Jordan, and will we be having a top 3 conversation of shooting guards in the future? He definitely could. He's that good of a player. Right now, though, you know what I'm saying? This is where the problem kind of starts to arise. Players like Jokic, who are arguably the best player in the league right now, multiple MVPs, 1 championship, is he necessarily being considered like LeBron? Is he being considered for one of the greatest of all time? I think really that's where the problem lies, is right now we don't have a player that has stepped up into being able to get thrown into the greatest of all time conversation. Now, again, players like Jokic, for example, arguably the best player in the league right now, you can make an argument that he is definitely top whatever, like top 10 in the history. I've seen some conversations about that. I'm not going to sit here and rank these players. I'm just saying that for the sake of conversation, let's say Jokic is top 10. It doesn't really feel like it. I feel like maybe it's the personality, maybe it's the social media presence, maybe it's those little things, which really I don't know if that matters, but in the way the modern NBA is and the social media aspect of it, it kind of does, because I feel like that's the reason why Anthony Edwards is loved so much. If we had something like that, maybe we can make this conversation kind of disappear a little bit. But, you know, this uncertainty for these comparisons, in my opinion, does kind of cast a little bit of doubt as to how the league will be after our legends retire. Not to say that because of this, the league people won't care. People definitely will. Again, there is a lot of young, talented players, but you do have to take that into account. Once our old generation retires, the people that we grew up with, are the kids going to be able to see this generation that's coming up the same as we did for our older generation? And maybe they won't. Maybe they will. Time will only tell. And another reason why I think the NBA could potentially be seen as decline, something that really isn't a new topic, but I feel like it's one that hasn't really been addressed as much I think it should have, is the regular season, and specifically how long it is. So the regular season for many years now, I feel like has slowly but surely losing more interest within just the general population of people that watch basketball. I think part of that has to do with the fact that it's 82 games long. The season of 82 literally lasts from like October to April, and it's just a crazy commitment to, you know, watch every game for the entire season. I know for a fact I don't watch my favorite team all 82 games, you know, whether that's live stuff coming up or I just don't watch it. I just don't. You know, things come up. Which is a complete difference to, for example, the NFL, where they only have 17 games a season, and they're all highlighted each week. There's Monday, Thursdays, and Sundays that are, for sure, if you're an NFL fan, you are locked in. You are watching those games. You're always looking forward to them. And I feel like the NBA doesn't have anything remotely close to that. Now, there's like the TNT doubleheaders. You got the ESPN doubleheaders. Like, technically, those would be the days that are like the basketball days, but they don't remotely have the same impact that the football does. And I think that is the biggest reason, one of the bigger reasons as to why the NBA regular season just people don't care about the abundance of games. I don't know if shortening the season will necessarily fix that. I feel like if there was a little bit less games, that people would appreciate the NBA game a little bit more. Because for me, the way I see it now is, okay, I may miss a game today, but I know we're going to be playing in 2 days. I know there might even be a back-to-back. They're going to play tomorrow. Maybe at most there's 2 days off. I will see them in 2-3 days. Whereas if in the NFL, once a week, they play Sunday, I won't see them to more than likely next Sunday. I have to wait a whole week to marinate in the loss or win to watch my team win again. The bounce back aspect of the game is prolonged. Whereas in the NBA, it's like another day, another chance to redeem yourself. I feel like that aspect kind of makes the regular season a little bit less interesting, especially in the earlier months, because right now, most people don't really, I think, care and understand really the significance of the regular season. Now, I could say, like, for example, being in the Western Conference, the games right now do matter. But most people, I feel like, don't really understand that or don't highlight that because, you know, the Eastern Conference, for example, the games right now, don't really matter. A team like the 76ers having a unfortunate season are going to more than likely have a stretch and make it to playoffs, despite them having a very bad start at the beginning of the season. Whereas if in the NFL you start like 0-5, for example, it's cooked. Damn near cooked. You're more than likely not making playoffs. Your season's over. In the NBA, you start off 0-5 and you have a chance to still make it to the NBA like playoffs, even conference finals. Like the Lakers last year, or not a couple years back, started 2-10 and made it to the conference finals, kind of defeating the purpose of the earlier months in the regular season because they started off bad and they still made it to where they wanted to be. Whereas again in the NFL, you really can't afford to drop that many games. And so from week 1 to week 18, week 17, it's all very important to be playing and to be trying to win these games. And I just feel like the NBA, with the fact that there's 82 games, loses that value per game because, again, there's the abundance of games and they're so frequent. If they kind of space that out a little bit more, try to lower the amount of games we play, we might see some change. But who knows? Who knows? And lastly, the biggest reason that I want to talk about as to why the ratings could potentially be going down, and the one that I feel like is probably the most important one, is the access to actually watching the product. I feel as if recently over the last couple years, this whole like transition to streaming services and selling their rights to Hulu or selling their rights to whatever, provider they're trying to give it to, Amazon or whatever, has kind of isolated the games and made it way harder as a just casual viewer to watch these games legitimately. I think that's why illegal websites, their usage has gone more up, just because, bro, all this is just a mess. If I bought League Pass and I wanted to just keep it legit, I'm gonna buy League Pass. If there's a game on TNT, or at least that's how it was a couple years ago. I don't know if they changed it because I don't want to buy League Pass just because of my previous experience with it. But when I had League Pass a couple years ago, you try to watch a game on TNT, ESPN, they were blocked out because it's nationally televised, okay? But I don't have cable, right? So now I got to go try to get a TNT subscription or something, or ESPN Plus, and it's like, so now I got to spend extra money to just watch a couple games out of the year that I want to watch. And typically, the nationally televised games are the ones that are, the popular ones. And let's say I also live in the local area of my team. Currently, let's say, for example, I'm in Sacramento. If I try to watch a Sacramento home game, it's blacked out due to the local networks. And okay, local networks W, but like, bro, I'm paying money to try to watch the game, and you're telling me I can't watch half of the team's game because of a blackout? That doesn't make any sense. What's the point of me buying this product? I have to now lie about what area code I live in, or zip code I mean, because you're not allowing me to watch the local team. Now, like the Clippers, for example, like I'm gonna use them as an example because they kind of came out with something cool, where like the Clipper Vision, where that broadcast all other games. I haven't actually really used it, so I don't know. But I try to sign up for it, and like I gotta be an LA citizen, like LA zip code to even get it. So I just feel like all these unnecessary things are just kind of isolating the viewer to try to even watch it in a legitimate way. So that's why I feel like illegal websites, the usage of them has just gone up, and that also impacts ratings because those aren't getting counted, those are being watched in an illegal manner. And I'm not trying to use that as an excuse, because the NFL, in theory, with the same problem as well, they're getting completely isolated by different networks and different games and all that. They would probably be seeing a viewership decline in theory as well, but like their viewership compared to the NBA viewership is way bigger, so I feel like them losing a couple million, like legitimately, like doesn't really matter, as opposed to the NBA where it's always kind of been lower million amount that we've seen. So that's why the change feels a little bit more amplified. But still, I don't know if it's too much of an excuse, because at the end of the day, as listed previously, there's still some reasons that need to be addressed to make the game a lot more enjoyable for people. But at the end of the day, they could change everything that we've talked about today, and if we can't watch the product, then it does not matter. It does not matter what they do if the access to the product is kept in the way that it's in right now. So hopefully they figure out a way, because according to the NBA themselves, which take that how you will, they've actually saw 32 billion views across social media platforms last year, which is a record-setting number for them, and more than likely is going to continue to grow with the use of social media. Maybe not TikTok, we don't know if it's going to stay or not, but still. So across social media, they have a lot of interest. The impressions they have is crazy. So there's still very obviously a demand for this sport. So when people say that the NBA in 10 years is going to be looking real spooky, I cannot agree with that, because I feel like the interest is at an all-time high, especially reaching international markets and whatnot. The interest is still definitely there, and I think it's going to keep thriving. But I don't know, man. At the same time, that's not a guarantee, especially what we talked about earlier in this video. We don't know. So hopefully they can figure it out. I'm really looking forward to revisiting this conversation, hopefully in a couple years, just to see where we stand at. I think I don't know if they're necessarily going to address any of the game style changes, but at the very least, if they can address the whole streaming situation, then maybe something can happen. With that being said, we've reached the end of this video. I want to say thank you guys for sticking through to this video. Hopefully this was a productive conversation about why the NBA viewership seems to be declining, and hopefully we can have some conversation in the comments. Looking forward to it. Thank you guys, and stay smooth.